Hafide, and welcome to D18 tonight. I'm your host, Crystal Paco. Joining us in studio, we have the willpower right now. We have Republicans Jeffrey Wheaton, and we have, of course, Senator Wil Castro, and to his right, we have William Parkinson. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. First off, we'll begin. I know you guys are watching it yourselves on TV. We'll begin by introducing yourselves. You each have 30 seconds. Wil Parkinson, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Wil Parkinson. I'm number 17 on the Democratic ticket. I'm running for senator. I'm the son of former Speaker Don Parkinson, and so I grew up with a passion for the political process. What I aim to do when I go into the legislature is I'm going to legalize marijuana, full stop, no initiatives, no going out and checking the impact. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to pass a bill, and I'm going to legalize it. And I'm also going to fight for lower utilities. So vote for me, Wil Parkinson, number 17. Thank you.
And Senator Wil Castro?
Hafide, good evening. I'm Wil Castro from the village of Barragata. I'm the son of a customs officer and a full-time homemaker. Most of my legislative term has been focused on empowering coastal communities and building relationships with regional partners in order to leverage the opportunities for the upside of economic development. I'm hoping then to strengthen education again, as particularly the charter school system, and see what we can do to develop new industries, particularly the fisheries and agricultural industries.
And Mr. Wheaton.
Hi, I'm Jeff Wheaton. I've been on Guam 22 years. I'm running for senator, and I look forward to this, my first time in the political arena. I would appreciate your vote on number 6 on the Republican ballot for the primary. And I have an email and some business cards. I'd love to hear from you and see what your concerns are. Thank you.
Okay, let's start off with our first question. And again, 30 seconds for each of you, and you all get the same exact question. What's your platform, Mr. Wheaton? And Mr. Wheaton, you can go ahead and look over here, and this is where the camera is. What's your platform?
Well, I was asked by my sister-in-law what my principles were and what my platform was, and it caused me to think about it. And I distilled it out to issues of personal freedom, personal and physical security, safety, and property rights, which is a little bit of a euphemism for taxes. So I look at all the unknowns that may come before the legislature. If in the legislature, the proposals will be...
Sorry, your time is up. Senator Wil Castro.
Hey, you can have my time. I'm hoping that the 35th Guam legislature, I'm given the privilege to this time take a different shift, to look at economic development, particularly in partnership with regional jurisdictions. I also want to look at a different component of our education system. I really believe it's an untapped economic upswing, particularly for this part of the world. Third thing I like to do is to work with our regional partners in order to leverage control, greater dominion over our natural resources, particularly the oceans, fisheries, and whatever other natural resources there may be, particularly in the Mariana Archipelago.
And William Parkinson.
Okay, well, you've heard my goals. Now hear my ethos. What I want to do is I want to bring strong progressive values here to Guam. I want to see an increase in the minimum wage. I want to see it up to $15 an hour. I want to get free health care for all. I would like to start that by doing some pilot programs for the nursing degrees. I would also like to do anyways, I want to legalize marijuana, and I want to lower utility rates.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Next question. What's the biggest problem facing Guam, and what are your plans to fix it? Let's start with Senator Wil Castro.
Yeah, sure. The number one challenge that we're facing as a community, obviously, is the Tax Cuts Jobs Act. We're looking at a major cash deficit as a result of an action by a power, without our input necessarily. So that's the number one crisis facing the island. We're looking at $160 to $180 million shortfall. I think we're going to definitely have to think out of the box and change the paradigm in order to address this. Cuts here and cuts there, I think that's part of the equation, but we have to be innovative and look at new ways to generate revenue. That's the number one thing facing the community right here, right now.
Thank you. Wil Parkinson, same question. What's the biggest problem facing Guam and your plans to fix it?
Guam is way too bloated. Every time, we just had this massive hole punched into our deficit by the Trump tax cuts. And so we have to adjust and live within our means now. And so that means we're going to have to make some hard cuts. And I would like to do some cuts at the high executive level. I do not want to touch any of the frontline levels, the workers, the police officers, the DMV officers. I want to look at people who are making $100,000, and I want them to justify why they're worth 2 to 3 teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Wheaton, same question. Biggest problem facing Guam and your plans to fix it?
Unfortunately, the dilemma with government is there is infinite demand for services and resources and finite services and finite financial assets. As expenses dry up with these tax cuts, priorities need to be drawn and held to. And I think that is the first thing that should be addressed, priorities.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Next question, and we'll start with Wil Parkinson. What will be your first piece of legislation? 2 years is not a lot of time.
Cannabis legislation. Get full recreational cannabis out there and in a speedy way. It's not going to be one of those things where we try to do it for years on end. I want to get this up and running as soon as possible because there is great economic incentive in being one of the first places to be a massive marijuana tourism destination here in the Pacific. There is money in the streets, and I feel like the man telling the emperor he has no clothes. Like, let's go collect this money. This is the elusive obvious.
Thank you. Mr. Wheaton, same question.
I would look at reviewing many laws for their applicability to current circumstances. We have laws, for example, the plastic garbage or the plastic bag ban. I'm not sure that made any sense at all, but it's a matter of pandering. We enact legislation to appease people and make favor, and it doesn't always make good government.
And Senator Wil Castro.
Yeah, so to build upon my last statement, my first piece in the 35th would be to authorize the governor to enter to an accord with regional partners. I'll give you an example, perhaps between Guam and our northern islands, to exercise greater dominion over our oceans and fisheries. I think, as I mentioned in my opening line, that there's a tremendous economic upswing and potential to that. As a small snapshot, how about if we partner with the other sovereign nation states and took a piece of that $6 billion fisheries industry? That's an area that's untapped and something I'd like to work on with the next administration.
Thank you, gentlemen. But right now, it's time for a break. Don't forget, you can log on to Facebook Live and ask your questions.
I've got content now.
Why turn a meal into a snack when you can turn a snack into a meal? A 3-cheese blend pico de gallo, double the marinated steak, and a medium drink.
At least they're cute.
Taco Bell's new steak nachos box. It's kind of a big meal.
A beautiful, healthy smile is an expression of confidence. The more confident you are about your smile, the more likely you are to fully express your feelings without having to worry about the way your teeth look.
Before cosmetic dentistry, I didn't smile as much. I didn't have the confidence, and it shows. And since I've had cosmetic dentistry done, I feel 10 times more confident. I make my initial introduction with a nice big smile and a handshake, and I just feel like it really is a relationship builder, a nice warm smile, and it makes the clients and customers feel more comfortable with you, feeling confident, and they feel that you're not just there for business, that you're also there kind of as a friend as well. So I mean, it's amazing how powerful a smile can be. A good smile.
Since your smile makes a significant impression on those around you, it is important that it makes the impression you want it to make.
Hoffman, welcome back to D18 tonight. We're taking your questions on Facebook Live. With us in studio are your senatorial candidates, Democrats William Parkinson, Republicans Wil Castro, Senator Wil Castro, and Jeffrey Wheaton. Next question for you, gentlemen. What political status do you favor? Commonwealth, independence, or statehood? We'll start with you, Senator.
So I'm not a gambler. I've often said it. I would support statehood. I really believe if we had 2 U.S. senators and a voting delegate in Congress, that we can leverage a lot of opportunity. I think one of the reasons why we're so easily dismissed is because we don't have an active voice in those levels, a voice that actually translates to a vote. And I really think with the amount of tenure that we can put people in those positions over the decades, we probably would have been able to command and leverage that, what's needed to bring the necessary resources this far west of the United States.
Mr. Wheaton?
Okay, it's not listed as an alternative. I'm for the status quo. I think Guam has the sweetest spot politically on the planet. We are America. We are wealthy. All of our federal income tax stays here. We have plenty of money if we manage it properly. And there's no better place, no better circumstance than what we have here now, in my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Parkinson, your opinion on political status?
Well, Guam, you and I have to have a little moment right here. I need to say to you, statehood will never, ever, ever happen. It is an impossibility, a virtual impossibility. The Republicans in the nation will not give us 2 Senate votes for 150,000 people that lean Democrat. They will never give it to us. So if we cannot be a state, we must focus all our resources towards independence. Thank you.
Okay, that was everybody.
Ooh.
Next question.
Opportunity for rebuttal.
There's a real threat of losing Medicare and Medicaid funding. The problem is that the Guam Memorial Hospital didn't happen overnight. If elected, this is an issue you will have to contend with. What are some of your ideas to fund GMH once and for all? Mr. Wheaton, starting with you.
Well, I believe they need to look at money coming in and money going out. I was briefed on circumstances behind the Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement rate and how it's different than GRMC or the Regional Medical Center. And that I think needs to be addressed. Funding is always a problem for operations. We get glory at the opening and no funding for continuation.
Okay. Senator Wil Castro.
So this is a perennial problem. We've addressed this in the last several years. I had the opportunity to look at the operations of the hospital. They've already put together a consolidated report that identified $3.5 to $5 million per year, or about $20 to $25 million in 5-year span in cost containment, cost reduction. But the issue doesn't address the $20 to $40 million operational cash shortfall. I introduced a measure that would give a dedicated source of funding, at least in the interim, but it has to be much bigger than that. For example, medicinal marijuana revenues could be dedicated to the hospital, or a traffic ticketing system, the revenues from that could be dedicated. Those are small amounts, but there's certainly larger opportunities there.
Wil Parkinson, your thoughts on the GMH problem?
Well, when you're about to go into a car crash, you don't fight the skid, you turn into the skid. So rather than throwing more money behind bad money, I think we need to starve the beast. We need to starve the beast, and we need to cut out all the wastefulness and the corruption there, because there are some harrowing things that whistleblowers have talked about with GMH, and a lot of their non-compliance issues have nothing to do with funding and have to do with things like basic sanitation. So there are problems at GMH,
Mr. Parkinson.
but it's not just money.
Next question comes from Joanna Bell Cruz on Facebook. How would you deal with the homeless situation in Guam? Mr. Parkinson, you can start us.
How would we deal with the homeless situation in Guam? Well, I would look at models like places like Utah, where they have found that it is cheaper on a society to just house them, rather than, making them go through the lengthy process of going on emergency services and all of the welfare and all the programs to help the homeless. Just put them in a home. So we should consider using some of these lands that we give out to sweetheart deals. Instead of putting in the sweetheart deals, we build homes on them and just give it to the homeless until they get on their feet.
Thank you. Senator Wil Castro.
You know, the Calvo administration has done a lot to erect affordable homes, and I believe that the administration has another plan to bring up even more. But that doesn't solve, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert, the root cause of this. Could it be educational opportunity? Could it be some kind of abuse, whether it's substance or emotional or physical abuse? Is there something else, another dimension to the root of the problem? I think putting them in a temporary home is a good solution, but I don't think it comes to the root of the problem. So we want to address that in a holistic fashion.
And Mr. Wheaton.
The reasons for homelessness are as varied as the reasons, as the people that are homeless. Some people actually choose to live that way. Other people are a matter of circumstances. And then there are some with substance abuse problems or motivational problems or educational shortcomings. And to pretend that there's some fits-all solution to an issue as broad-based as the homeless, I think is really inappropriate. It should be left to volunteer organizations.
Thank you. More questions after the break.
A strong economy depends on a strong middle class. Businesses need help to survive in these tough times, and new industries are needed. As your governor, I will propose tax cuts for small businesses. We will streamline government operations to create a more business-friendly environment. We will invest in infrastructure and in our people by expanding opportunities to learn much-needed trades. I'm in to help get us there, and I humbly ask for your vote.
And I approve this message.
Chuck E. Cheese's Guam just got a whole lot funner. Chuck E. Cheese and Helen are excited to welcome friends Pasquale and Jasper to Guam. Join us on Friday, July 13th at 6 p.m. for a great welcome party. Food and token specials all night long. Be part of the party at Chuck E. Cheese's Guam.
Mary and Mark said they'll meet us there at 8 o'clock, okay?
What are you doing, hun?
I gotta be the faster draw tonight. They beat us to the bill last time, and we missed out on the 3% cash back. I got the skills to pay the bills.
This summer, the Bank of Guam Visa credit card gives you 3% cash back on all purchases. It's an offer so good, you'll be competing to pay the bill.
Your check.
The Visa credit card with 3% cash back this June, July, and August. Only at Bank of Guam. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, member FDIC.
Hoffman, and welcome back to D18 tonight. We'll jump into the next round of Facebook questions. This question comes from Stephen Blake on Facebook, who asks, Simon Sanchez needs help for the past 10 years. What can we do to rebuild it now? The children have been fighting for this year after year. Mr. Wheaton, let's start with you.
I am honestly rather ignorant of the situation at Simon Sanchez. My niece graduated from there 6-8 years ago. She did quite well in college. The job is getting done there. I would look at the actual condition of it and evaluate that for refurbishment or whatever. A lot of money, $100 million, and it needs to be spent with some consideration.
Okay, thank you. Senator Wil Castro.
Yeah, aside from finding a new way to deal with protests and the appeals process, I think we went to several iterations of the public law. I'm quite confident in GDOE and Superintendent John Fernandez taking the helm now and working with DPW to finally close the loop on Simon Sanchez. It's a government procurement process, so you can't rush it. I think the only thing that could hold us back would be protest after protest after protest. But again, I'm confident in the piece that Senator Adat proffered that we passed, that was signed into law, and that could be led by John Fernandez.
Thank you so much. Will Parkinson.
Well, I think we need to practice a little government autophagy here and just tear the whole thing down and build it up with a better, stronger, newer bones. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've been to Sanchez, the bones on that school aren't that good. You know, let's get a new school in there and do it right so we don't have to do this every 20 to 30 years.
Thank you. Next question comes from Facebook viewer Jermaine Enoch. He asks, what are you going to do to help stop drugs on Guam? Senator Wil Castro.
Well, I want to build upon a conversation we've had, actually a working group with the CNMI folks, our partners, Governor Calvo, Governor Torres, and some folks from here, to share intelligence using technology to exercise greater control over our borders through a collaborative process. Former Customs Director James McDonald talked about this in the media at some time. But I also think it's a matter of treatment to find out what the causes, like homelessness, are, whether it's substance abuse or some other circumstances that have led them to take up the vice.
What Parkinson?
I would legalize marijuana, and I would gut the drug dealers' power, because their power is the money they make on the black market. And so if we cut their legs out from under them and the only people making any money on cannabis are legal, law-abiding citizens, then we will cripple their criminal enterprise and do a lot to put a dent to drugs on Guam.
Mr. Wheaton, what will you do to stop drugs on Guam?
First, prioritize, as Mr. Parkinson has discussed, prioritize what are really dangerous drugs versus stuff that has had a bad reputation. Second, customs and quarantine. These people need to be fully funded, and lots of officers and lots of inspection at the borders. And that will raise the price until, quite simply, people can't afford all the high-cost drugs.
Okay. Stay tuned. D18 Tonight continues after this short break.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's, offers fully covered loading and unloading area with individual pin-coded gate and door access. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
You guys excited back there?
Welcome back to D18 Tonight. We're getting close to wrapping up our show, but after this show, we have the exclusive digital show. That means you can log on to Facebook. The after party with Sabrina Salas-Metanani and Chris Barnett, and analysts Chris Dombrowski, Victoria Lola Leon Guerrero, and Ryan San Nicolas. But first, more questions again on Facebook. You can ask them. I can ask them for you. This question comes from Juan Borja. What do all the candidates think about part-time legislature? Mr. Parkinson, let's start with you.
Part-time legislature is, frankly, a ridiculous idea. It is a bad, bad idea. Like, the problems Guam have are full-time problems. And if you want to put a part-time legislature, you will get part-time solutions. There are people who are running in this race, like Sabina Perez, who is giving up full-time benefits and full-time work, and you're going to tell her to work in a part-time legislature? That's ridiculous. Full-time legislature for full-time work.
Senator Castro.
I agree. I don't think there's anything part-time about the issues facing this community. It's a unique island community. And also as a matter of being pragmatic about it, I really can't see where an accountant or even a full-time professional, teaching professional, could take a month or two off to go to session or settle the issues facing this community over a cup of coffee on a part-time basis. What I certainly don't want to see is that those in the privilege and the haves are taking advantage and exploiting this opportunity to truly express the concerns of everybody else, and not just those who can afford to take time off from work.
And Mr. Wheaton, your thoughts on part-time legislature?
I'm fine with it. Much mischief occurs because we have a legislature that is inserting itself into so many of our day-to-day activities. I'll use the plastic bag law as an example. But this is beyond the necessities of government. This is busybodiness, and we don't need that. Part-time will help.
Excuse me, can I say something real quick? The legislature is only worth $9 million. We have a $140 hole.
I'm
$9
sorry,
million
Mr.
isn't going to stop
Parkinson.
it.
This question comes from our Facebook viewer, Bobby Stringy. Do you support GRT increases? Mr. Castro.
Absolutely no. I don't. I introduced a bill that would sustain the current one. I'm absolutely dead set against any more taxes. I approved the sales tax because it was the only viable option on the table at the time when there was a fiscal crisis that was defined by the administration. It's washed off the table. So I'm not going to address it again. I think there are other opportunities to generate revenue. I'm getting all kinds of feedback from the business community about how it's financially impacting them, their own bottom line, their take-home, their own income, their personal checks that they take home to their families. And so the short answer is no. I don't support any more increases.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Parkinson.
I would be a stallion against taxes for the working class. And the GRT increase is definitely a tax that is regressive and hits the working class the hardest. No, if I were to look for ways to fund, I would tax the top 1% and make those pay their fair share. Because there's a lot of sweetheart deals going on that need to be re-examined, and I would look at the top 1%. Not the people of Guam, not the working class, the rich. Make them pay their fair share.
Jeffrey Wheaton, what do you think about GRT taxes?
GRT taxes in general, are the government taking money from the private sector economy. GRT, we can pretend it takes it from business and doesn't affect us when we go grocery shopping or buy gasoline or any other product or service. I'm against any increase in taxes. I really believe we pay enough. Thank you.
Next question comes from Stephen Blake on Facebook. DOC has been in the news almost every week about contraband. What can you do to eliminate the ongoing contraband getting into our correction facility? Let's start with you, Mr. Wheaton.
I think the management of the correctional facility is improving. And I think that they're catching people. People talk about corruption. That's a good sign because people are getting caught when they misbehave. And the same is true of the Department of Corrections. The things that went down made it to the newspapers and result in charges and prosecution.
Senator.
You got the wrong model in the wrong part of town. I think what we have is a combination between a state-level penitentiary and a correctional facility. Why don't we go back to what I keep pushing in terms of regional collaboration and open up a state-level penitentiary, except make it regional, and put it in one of the northern islands in collaboration with the CNMI and Palau and RMI and FSM. And that's where your serious offenders are. I think if you just stretch your imagination, it might address the issues of contraband. I don't think we have to worry too much about people escaping. I mean, that's something to think about and work towards.
Mr. Parkinson.
Well, as far as corruption in government go, I live by one simple motto: slay evil immediately. When we find corruption, we need to make an example of these people and let them know that if you have any sort of tomfoolery, we will take you out and we will make you pay the price, and you will be an example to other people to cut it out, because you can't stop corruption, but we can deter it by being vigilant.
We are just about done, but I'll give each of you a chance to say your last words to the audience at home. Mr. Wheaton, starting with you. Last words to the audience.
I've never done this before, not even student council in middle school or junior high. I am not taking donations. I'm not doing fundraisers. I have no outside interests. I intend to represent all Guamanians, present and future, should I be elected to the legislature.
Senator Castro. Thank you, Mr. Wheaton.
Hafa I'm Wil Castro, and I humbly seek your vote for re-election. I've been working towards empowering coastal communities. I've started the discussion as far back as January and haven't stopped, as recent as this past Sunday, in trying to build partnerships between us and our regional neighbors. If given the privilege to serve again, I'd like to challenge the status quo, challenge the paradigm. I don't necessarily agree that we can't be a state. I don't necessarily agree that we can't take dominion over our oceans and natural resources. If given the opportunity to serve in the 35th, you're going to count on that I'll be able to challenge that paradigm. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And last but not least, Mr. Parkinson.
I make the best spaghetti on the island. So please come to my fundraiser on July 25th so you can hear about my platform and how I am going to drag Guam to greatness by legalizing marijuana and lowering your tax rates. Because I have a vision. Democrats are going to win big. We are just going to smash it this year. And so it's not enough to have Democrats in there. You need Democrats with a vision, and I have a vision for how I'm going to lead the Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck to the three of you. We encourage you to the three of you to still go onto our Facebook page, and you can answer the questions for yourself. For those of you online, stay tuned. Up next, the after party.
Oh my God, that was good. Furniture provided by Furniture Kathy Style. Men's wardrobe by Royal Bix.